Hey, welcome back to Going Mental. The last few installments kind of been pretty heavy on mental health and trying to help people with all the stuff that come with the mental health issues. Um, but today I want to kind of make it a bit more fun, just kind of focus on a few different things and thinking about how we can improve mental health in general and all that sort of stuff. Like there's some really interesting stuff on I guess human behavior, human rules. Being an ex-cop, obviously, you think about rules and law and all that sort of stuff. It's all designed, I guess, by someone to make people behave a certain way. We don't want people running around killing each other. We don't want people doing that stuff. So over time, all these kind of rules have developed. Most of them pretty good, but at the same time, there's a lot of stuff out there that isn't so good when you really think about it, right? Like, I mean, hey, I don't want to, before I go anywhere near this topic, religion's a funny one, but, religion has a place, has done some good stuff, has done a lot of bad stuff, and it's very divisive, right? It divides people. And when we think about us as human beings, there's some really cool books out there talk about sapiens and stuff like that, and how we've developed as a species, as people. You go back and like I say, I'm not trying to pretend I know this stuff better than other people. It's certainly not my area of expertise, but at the same time, it's food for thought, right? Like thinking about why do we act a certain way? Why do we like? It's not real. It doesn't take genius people to work out that if your parents were a certain religion and your grandparents were a certain religion, that it tends to follow on because they're your big influences in your life as a child. And I hate to say it, but there's elements of religion that's they're designed to scare the shit out of you, right? You don't want to burn in hell. You don't want to not go to heaven, all that stuff. So that's imprinted in your brain to do that, right? And when I look at law as a cop, a big part of law is like I always, when we used to do, stats on, the road toll, as in wanting people to drive safer, you know, long weekends, we got to double demerit points. What's that all about? Well, it's trying to put fear into you so you don't lose more points. You're not worried about, hey, I could kill someone. That's like at the lower end of that part. But as a law producing part of the society, we're trying to scare people into not wanting to do bad things, right? And that's part of why we have punishment and all that. And it's no different at a micro level where parents are the same, right? If you do that, you don't get if you don't eat your carrots, you don't get dessert. If you don't do this, I'm gonna whack you, And so, we've done this over in lots of societies, and you know, um, some societies and some religions are brutal even now, right? Like, lots of things have changed over the years, and a lot less people are going towards religion, not for a bad reason, but they've thought about it, they're not happy with it, and elements of the way the laws work. It's not that long ago where a certain king decided, there was his religion didn't allow for divorce, and so he just created his own religion because he's the king. So it's like it's just a law, right? It's a law. It's not real. Like it is real, but it's not real. It's an idea of realness. So when you think about the things that may prevent you from doing stuff as a human being, like I don't know, years ago was sex before marriage, right? Just using that as an example, and now it's like, no one cares if people aren't married anymore as much as they used to be. It was like horrendously shameful to have that back in the day. I mean, having a child out of wedlock, the old bastard, is a term that no one really uses anymore, because so what? A child out of wedlock, you're going to burn in hell? Maybe. Apparently 100 years ago, you were going to burn in hell, but God softened his version of that, right? So it's like I mean, it sounds silly when I say it like that, but at the same time, there's lots of elements of why do we behave the way we do? Why do we, like, this diesel brand, right? Why am I wearing this brand? Like, I'm sure there's probably a cheaper version of this. And in the back of my mind, when I bought it, I was like, I want to wear diesel, whatever. But at the same time, we're influenced by lots of stuff, right? Like, there's people that spend thousands of dollars on a t-shirt, thousands, right? And there's other people that can't even feed their kids. So, I'm not trying to shame anyone into what they're doing or why they're buying those things, but do we really think that through of why and how we do what we do is being influenced by all the stuff in music? If you're brought up obviously in a family that's super wealthy, buying $1,000 t-shirt means nothing to you. Money is nothing to you. But, if you're working class or below the poverty line, all that sort of stuff. So there's elements of all this stuff that comes in. I know in the past I've mentioned, mental health and talk about adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs as they call it, where the more ACEs or adverse childhood experiences you've had, like a parent who's been incarcerated, who's an alcoholic, or you've been abused, they all add up to potential negative mental health outcomes. But at the same time, it's not a guarantee. And not only that, the opposite can happen where you've had a great childhood. I was watching this thing about Avicii, the kid Tim. Sorry, his surname escapes me right now, but like a lot going for him. Great parents, was always kind of a kid who was always anxious, I guess, and worried about stuff. And like, he's in the limelight when he became super famous and all that stuff. And unfortunately, he took his own life very early on. And it's a tragedy, right? But at the same time, he's not a person who's had adverse childhood experience. He had an experience, and that obviously triggered him, and things went south for him. So it's not about, it's kind of like just want to understand our own behavior. Like, there's lots of people, we talk about the ones that have taken their own life. We don't always talk about the ones that had the same poor experiences. I'll call them positive deviants, but not my term. It comes from Vital Smarts, a book I read a little while back. But they talk about these positive deviants, and I use that quite a bit around why didn't those people become people who had taken their own life? What did they do differently? Why are they a positive deviant rather than the outcome of those ACEs aspect of stuff? And so for me, it's really about just trying to understand a little bit about, what's happening up here with us. How do we make ourselves more mentally tough, more resilient? Things are going to happen to us, right? Like, at the end of the day, none of us come out of this alive. So let's make no illusions about that. We're all going to die at some point. It's just going to happen. You can, cryogenically save yourself and all the shit that people talk about, but the reality is that they can happen. So we are where we are. You might be a hot-looking 90-year-old, got all the facelift, pull this deck, all that, get all the stuff done and all that. But at some point, body's going to pack up and it's going to go, right? Like, there's not... And look, they always show you the oldest person on the planet. They don't look healthy. They don't look happy. Like, seriously, I'm in my 90s. I'm going to be pretty happy to go. I don't be fucking around, trying to do a 100-meter sprint, be the fastest person over in 100 years, over 100 years of age, to be fucking running 100 meters. Like, seriously, what are you trying to prove? Oh yeah, you beat the other guy who was in a wheelchair. Oh fuck, it's just stupid, right? Like, seriously, I mean, good luck to him. But I guess tonight was more around just getting back into thinking about the whole topic of resilience, and really focusing on going mental. When I say going mental, it's about thinking about how mental we go, but also understanding why do people do stupid things? Why do people toe the line when they shouldn't? Like, there's so many experiments. Like, I love the brown-eyed, blue-eyed kid experiment, and the kids in the 60s where, the teacher just made up a rule that, kids with green eyes or blue eyes were more intelligent than kids with brown eyes. And they put these kids in a shitty room, the brown-eyed ones that were the not smart ones, if you like, just because she chose it. And then, they treated each other badly, right? And they, typical of brown. And one day, it took one day. And this is where you think of racism and all the stuff that come, right? Like people look for, there's lots of psychological things part of that, right? Confirmation bias says, now there are no brown-eyed kids or blue-eyed kids are dumb. I see it all the time. Clint said something stupid, and that's exactly what we'd expect from someone with that kind of colour dye. And then, funny enough, they flipped it the next day, and the kids that didn't like it the day before, when now the kids go, I got it wrong, I'm going to let you all know that actually it's the brown-eyed kids are the smart ones and the blue-eyed kids are the dumb ones. And then these same kids that freaking hated it the day before, they turn on them, right? And this is the point, right? Like understanding just how easy it is when we all want to be on top of our game, right? We want to look good. That's why you buy the t-shirt. It makes you look better with a brand because it's all of that conforming stuff. But who said that? Like, at what point did someone go, I really want to, put a brand on my my toga, and my toga is better than yours because it's got diesel on it. Like, at what point did that happen? Like, when did branding really become a thing that people got shamed? No, so this is the other thing, right? Shame and guilt are very big emotions that really, really go to the heart of why people sometimes react the way they do. No one wants to be shamed. Shame is horrible, right? Like if they look at you and you're the only kid with no good Reebok shoes or no Nikes, no one wants that. I've been that kid. Thanks, mum and dad. Bought me shit shoes. But anyway, I can handle that, right? But, at the end of the day, it's also what you can afford, right? And so, unfortunately, the people that are less open to having disposable income and buying their kids these top-end shoes and all the stuff that come with that tend to be the ones that get whacked in a bad way. And the shame and the guilt of having that is horrendous. And so understanding that as a society and understand that as a person, especially the person at the other end of it. Like, there's always some nice kid whose parents are wealthy, they don't hang shit on other kids, but there's always some fucking wanker that will push the problem, make sure that everyone knows about it, wants a big note themselves. And unfortunately, other people will laugh about that. And then it just becomes a bigger problem. I wrote about that in my book, Lighting the Blue Flame. For those that don't know it, the book's literally, that's what the cover looks like, but the book's literally written around exactly that. A kid who gets bullied at school for not fitting in, for not being, sporty, for not, for not wearing the right stuff and not fitting with the right group and get ostracized and all these things have a toll on everybody. It's not necessarily ACEs, as in adverse childhood experiences, but all these little things add up to be little ACEs for that individual. It's not, it's bad. No one's calculating those things, those little things. Like, I don't know, when I was interviewing parents, especially, not so much children, who have had kids who tried to commit suicide or parents who themselves have been suicidal when they were younger and stuff, and really talking to these adults. Adults have always been kids. Have all been kids, right? We've all, you get to be an adulthood without being a child. And so all these experiences and listening to these people makes you really think about that stuff, right? Some of it does have religious overtones where, this woman was married to this guy who used to beat the shit out of her, right? Like clear, horrible domestic violence. And she was too scared to tell her sisters and her family because their religion didn't allow for divorce and but it was frowned upon to leave your husband. This guy was obviously a wanker. Like, seriously, tough stuff. Like, the conversation I had with her was horrendous. And then I have other people, who, they've had a tough time and sexually abused by their father and their grandfather and mum and grandma do nothing about it, and just listening to how horrible it is it's scary stuff. And like, I think for me, um, getting back into the whole view of mental health and what it means is important for me. I think I've got some things I want to do going forward. Yes, the book's just a starting point, but I genuinely want to see how we can, you know, go through the government, change laws, and change things in a different way. That's way more constructive than the crap we do now. Blows my mind how much money gets spent on programs and all kinds of stuff. And yet we still have the same mental health model here in Australia, right? I don't know about you people out in the rest of the world, but in Australia, the mental model, I've studied psych, I've got 2 degrees in psychology, I've been a counsellor, I work for the police, I've been a counsellor for the police. And in my head, I'm still flabbergasted that that's the same model that we still have, right? No one's trying to maximize output by lived experience, working with the community, working with schools. We still do the same shit. The people pay for a psychologist, psychiatrist, counsellor to do one-on-one stuff with each other, despite the fact that a lot of the problems and the causes of those problems come from a social aspect of it. So why are we not, challenging the status quo? Why not pushing the realms of doing that better? Just blows my mind. Anyway, thanks for listening. You have a good one. See you guys.